Hello, everybody, and welcome to RoboWeekly, where we're going to be talking about robots. Just a quick introduction. My name is Fabian Friedland. Over here is my co-host, who goes by the name of danxOr, who in fact used to be my old boss many years ago at a company called Onto Technologies Duck Corporation. Just so you know, while we're here, we now work for a company called danxOr. We are roboticists. We work in machine learning, specifically reinforcement learning, and we do in fact build robots. And although we won't be talking about our robot for the next couple of weeks because we're in stealth mode, we are going to be talking about the current state of the art. And of course, we've just had CES, so we'll be talking about CES. And welcome to RoboWeekly. As the title suggests, we intend to make this a weekly podcast. And Dan, let's see. Did you go to CES this year? I know that you've been somebody that goes there a lot in the past.
Yeah, I didn't make it this year. Hey, what's up with your glasses?
The glasses, yes.
Sunglasses.
The glasses. Yes, one shouldn't wear sunglasses indoors. I just want to make sure that I do know that, but this is for my condition. So, my condition, as you know, our previous company was in the World Trade Center area on 9/11, and you're not in New York anymore. I still am, so I get monitored by the World Trade Center. It's a Droga commission every year, and in fact, this year I went, and as I was leaving, it was just a few days ago. It happens in January. They gave me a piece of paper, and it said on the piece of paper, gambling addiction. And I was like, that's very strange, because all I'd mentioned to the doctor was that I'd been enjoying and doing well placing wages on the English Premier League. So I actually went back into my doctor and I said, why have you put down gambling addiction? And he said, well, there isn't any other option. You can't just put down gambling hobby. It's like it's either a problem or I leave it out. I'm like, well, it's not a problem. He goes, I don't know. I just kind of got the sense that it might be. I'm like, I object to this because a very wise, a very wise person called David Silver once said that anything that you put on the internet or down digitally, record digitally in any way, will one day be open for everybody to see. And I said this to my doctor. I said, any prospective employer might know in the future, apart from the fact that I'm now telling everybody, that I could possibly be a compulsive gambler. Anyway, just your thoughts on this. Is David Silver right? Is everything that you've ever written, are you prepared for everything you've ever written down to be out there one day?
No, I'm not prepared for it, but it's going to happen anyway. I think that's largely true. Actually, having secure conversations, having protected conversations. I mean, they're working on quantum computing, which is going to make all RSA stuff, irrelevant. So any data that's been captured over the years will suddenly be unencrypted. To be honest, the youngest generations seem to be fine with it. They put their stuff up on Facebook that I would never put up as somewhat older. I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's moving in that direction.
Interesting. Now, one of the things, apart from the fact that we are AI researchers, you persuaded me to start focusing on robots some time ago, something which I didn't really agree on. And of course, I've come around now and think that you were completely correct.
I hope so.
Again. Now, the interesting thing is that we're going to look at the robots, some of the humanoid robots, not necessarily bipeds, that were shown at CES. One of the things I do want to point out, because people don't really know why we're here, is that most of these robots we're about to look at are in the range of $30,000 to $70,000, up to $100,000 if you can find them. Most of them are not open source. Most of them you can't even get if you had the money. danxOr, our company, intends to bring a full-size robot to market within the next 4 months at a cost of $2,500. So that is what we do, and that's what you will find out about in a couple of weeks. But for right now, let's talk about CES. And in fact, we've got a quick video. If we can just bring that up, it's Chinese New Year today. Let's take a look at the Unitree H1 celebrating that. This is, of course, robot at the higher end of things. Well, I don't know if you guys can hear the audio, but it's what you'd hear at a Chinese wedding, I'm guessing. certainly those are the kinds of things that I've seen acrobats do at Chinese weddings. So Dan, what we have here is a biped. As you know, bipeds are very, very difficult. Lots of balance issues. All these are synchronized, obviously. So I'm guessing that they're working with a degree. Do you want to comment on what we're looking at here?
Yeah. So it's an impressive piece of kit. We've seen it before. Notice that there are no hands. It's really focusing on legged locomotion. That's what Unitree is known for. They had a Spot competitor earlier, about a year or two ago. Spot being the dog robot from Boston Dynamics.
We're going to see it at the end, I believe.
Okay, cool. So what I would say is what's really impressive about this is the sort of the swarm coordination. And without getting into geopolitics, frankly, the only real absolute requirement or a need for legged locomotion might be military. So sorry to throw that out there, but I mean, this obviously
getting upstairs. I mean, we're talking about cobots a lot.
Right.
Getting upstairs. Houses are built for many houses are built for people with legs. So it may be something we might have to get to later on.
Right.
Let's take a look at something that I consider to be quite stupid. But I've got a feeling you might not agree with me. Can we bring up the next slide? This is from a company. Yeah, this is a product called the LEQ 3.0. It looks to me like a screen with a Alexa-type device on it. My understanding is the difference between what I've just described and what it actually does is that this is proactive. So for older people living at home, and as we know, elder care is one of the big subjects, for older people living at home who are bored, this actually will initiate the conversation and start talking to you.
Right. That would drive me crazy. But maybe in an elder care situation or someone with some issues and not a lot of visitors, it might make sense.
I mean, I'm guessing it'll say things like, how are you today? Are you bored? Would you like me to do this? Would you like me to do that? But she seems quite happy, obviously. So before we talk about, before I ask you my final question on this product, because I do want to get your opinion on whether this is a robot or is not a robot, I'd just like to relay something from our recent past. Well, actually, first of all, from our further past, we worked for a company called Duck Corporation on 2 technologies that was sold to Google. We are video compression image specialists. Actually, that is video compression image processing specialists. And our company was bought by Google so that it could avoid paying MPEG LA patent fees. And we now believe that about 60 to 70% of all video traffic on the internet, except for H.264 and H.265, is actually compressed with our technology. That's our distant past. Even more distant past, I actually forgot to mention this when I was introducing Dan, is that Dan is also a hacker of some repute and has actually been mentioned anonymously in a number of hacker books. And as we go along with these episodes, I'm going to try and see if I can get him to talk a little bit about some of those ones where I believe the statute of limitations has passed.
No, you don't.
But that's in the very far past. Far past is Duck Technologies. Much more recent past is 6 months ago. Dan and I went on a reality TV show called The Blocks for startups. We can't tell you what the results are because the results are embargoed until it streams, which I believe will be in May, and then it will go on to Amazon Prime. But the reason I wanted to relay this story is because we learned something very, very, very interesting on the first day. And that as I was talking to the host of the show, a gentleman by the name of Wes Bergman, who I ended up to like very, very much, as I did with most of the people who I met there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Wes Bergman goes to me, so what do you guys do? And I said, well, we're roboticists and we're computer scientists, and we don't think that the sim to real gap, the simulation to real gap, which is done by simulators is fit for purpose, because simulators right now are built for video games. They have a problem with hair and they have a problem with folding clothes. And we want to do this new kind of simulator so we can create synthetic data, which we believe is going to be the future of robotics, because synthetic data will enable us to do reinforcement learning. And he goes to me, I have no idea what you just said. I'm like, oh. He goes, try again. I'm like, we make robots. He's like, great. He's like, what kind of robots? I'm like, cheap robots. He's like, you're the cheap robot guy. I'm like, yes, I'm the cheap robot guy. And it was amazing. From then on, for the whole week, we were the cheap, and everybody knew who we were instantly. So I think it's important for you guys to know that while we are doing lots of stuff, our project right now is we are the cheap robot guys, and you're going to start seeing a number of other humanoid robots at CES. We're going to look at another 4 more, and they're all going to be 40,000 or more. And I just want you to bear in mind that we are going to bring a product to market for $2,500. And our MVP, our minimal viable product, is one that is not 12 inches high, which is what STEM kids use to like pick up matchsticks. It's got to be full size. It's got to be able to reach up to 5 feet, and it's got to be able to bring you something. Let's look at the next robot that we have from CES. This is called the Open Droid 1. Now, this one I think has got a lot of legs to it, so to speak, although it's obviously it doesn't have any legs. It's on a wheeled base. But this looks like something that's getting there as far as I'm concerned. From my point of view, I see it's dealing with a height issue by having this elevator that's on a wheel base. It seems to have a 7 degree of freedom arm that can probably hold lots of different things, and it appears to be vacuuming. It's also expensive. Dan, what do you think?
Well, this is a step in the right direction. I think it's going to be very hard for them to cost reduce this. The elevator is expensive and complicated and technically challenging, and it only seems to have one arm. The kind of software that we're looking at that can do things like fold clothes and fill a dishwasher, it really requires 2 arms at least to be able to maneuver and manipulate things.
So this robot cannot do the circular motion on the tummy and pat its head at the same time.
Can't do it. Or it's only got one arm.
And it can't open a bottle of beer. Well, actually, it probably could open a bottle of beer if it had a bottle opener screwed on.
It's going to need special devices for its end effector. It's not as general purpose as a human.
Right. So one arm problem, making it cost effective problem, but getting in the right direction. I think that's what I'm hearing from you. Let's just finish off with this one.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this one, and I'm going to ask you a question about this one, and I'm going to ask about most robots moving forward, which is robot or not bot. A lot of people think that things that are robots are not, and vice versa. Some people think that they're just glorified vending machines or glorified Alexas. So I'm going to ask you on this one, which is the Open Droid 1, robot or not bot?
This one that we're looking at now with the elevator.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a robot.
Yeah, I would agree. So we like this one, but it's going to cost too much. Although I would take one for free. Okay, let's take a look at the next slide. Our next slide from CES is the Flippy flip station, which I understand is found in food courts, food producing facilities. It consists of, on the left, 3 baskets, which can be lowered into boiling oil. Things like French fries, shrimps, anything that can be deep fried. It then automatically moves it over to the left-hand side where it deposits it into a container of some kind. Yeah, the right-hand side, and then delivers it to the customer or to the server. I think this is, I don't know. I can't imagine why anybody would think this is a robot. To me, it just looks like
it's a machine.
It's a machine. I mean, I think I remember seeing things like this in in the seaside where they do those mini donuts and they kind of go down and into the.
I could have built this in the 1850s with steampunk technology.
Yeah, exactly. So why is it here? Why is it at CES?
Because they want to, because the people that go to CES are looking at things like these humanoid robots, but they may want to settle for something that's very special purpose. So, they're trolling for customers, and they're basically, their philosophy is probably these, Elon's, Musk style robots aren't going to really do anything for 10 or 15 years. And in the meantime, people want to be high tech. So we're going to sell this machine that's, like an automat. But, if you're going back to your bot or not bot, I don't know if we're doing that segment later, but this is not a bot in my estimation.
Not a bot. Interesting. Okay. I also think it's not a bot, but I've got a funny feeling there may be some disagreement there. But that's okay. We're going to move on to our final slide, which is Mirokai. Mirokai, as you can tell, has a very Japanese sensibility. It looks like that its locomotion is a uniball. It looks like it has 2 hands, 2 arms, and it seems to be dipping its toes into the uncanny valley there.
Yeah. Well, we can get into the whole sort of Japanese style and aesthetic, which is not something I know much about. But just looking at it technically, I mean, balancing on that ball is a neat party trick. But it's going to be sitting there, it can never even be quiet. You're going to hear it like adjusting its ball, and if it falls down, it's going to need a human to pick it back up. So I think this is sort of in the same bucket as legged locomotion. It's impressive, but it's hard to understand what the actual value of doing it that way is over a standard 3 or 4 wheel base, for instance. I mean, it can't climb stairs.
So I don't think so. Maybe it could steady itself with its arms on the walls. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think it could climb stairs. Interestingly, Japanese robots, are very easy to spot because they look kind of anime-ish. In fact, Japanese robots are about 20 years ahead of us. They came up with the phrase uncanny valley. My understanding is that one of the reasons why the Japanese aren't so freaked out about what we are a little bit, an uncanny valley, for those people that don't know, is that humans are impressed with robots and how good they are until it gets to a very certain point where they get freaked out, and it sort of doesn't happen gradually. You fall off a cliff. And you get really weirded out. And my understanding is that Judeo-Christians have had a prohibition from making graven images and idols, whereas Taoism has less restrictions on that, which I think is why they're slightly further ahead. But the only point I was going to
let me just interject here. It's Golem versus Pinocchio.
That's right. We consider it a golem. That's right. And they're not freaked out by it. Which
for them, machines, something they build that comes to life is magical and exciting and cool. And we have Frankenstein and all the science fiction and Terminator and HAL 2001, and we just have an aesthetic here in the West that seems to be like, you can't. If you watch a movie where a robot comes into the home to help out, it never ends well.
Right.
And that's an aesthetic choice that we have to deal with as roboticists.
Right. That's absolutely true. And although I think the Japanese, they have a more pressing problem. As we know, they have a immigration issue. They have a aging population issue. So those are things that they're going to have to deal with. Talking about anthropomorphizing robots, I just want to very briefly talk about how easy it is to anthropomorphize. It's such a low bar. If we think back to, I think, John McCarthy in the early days of the first AI conference at Dartmouth, I think that's where they first started working on ELIZA, which was a text-based therapist. And I think all it had to do, chatbot, all it had to do was say to you, why do you feel that way? And you thought you were talking to a human. That's how low the bar is for anthropomorphization. So it's very easy to do, in my opinion. I think it's very easy to fall into.
We might agree to disagree a bit on this. I think the ELIZA illusion might work for an 8-year-old. It might work for somebody who doesn't know much about computers. At that time, people didn't have a computer in their pocket. I think it's harder to pass that test now. And I think these chatbots that we have are, a lot more sophisticated than ELIZA. I don't know if that's what you were implying, but
no, it absolutely was. And I was trying to figure out, if our ability to anthropomorphize is something that's hardwired, or if it's something that's sort of more dynamic, and as we get used to these things, it's going to sort of change, which is, I think, what you're saying. Talking about uncanny valley, I think I'm going to go here. My personal opinion is that Uncanny Valley is good for two particular things. One is for demented people, although I was told that I'm not allowed to use the word demented anymore for people suffering from dementia.
People with dementia.
People with dementia, yes. And the other one is for people who want to have relationships with robots.
Oh boy.
And that's whether it's a relationship where you come home and it asks you how your day was, or whether you're actually having sex with that robot. And of course, Dan, I do have two questions for you. The first question is: would you have sex with a one-orifice, genderless robot under the right circumstances?
Only if we were in love.
Only if you're in love. So the robot would have to love you back. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's
right.
got to be mutual consent.
Listen, the robot's got to give consent, and of course, it's a gift given to us by God, who is yet to exist.
If you think so,
I think he will exist at some point. And my second question for you is: it's not really more a question; it's more of a comment, which is we all know the old adage that you don't put your schmeckle into stupid. I would like to amend that by saying you don't put your schmeckle into anything that's measured in Newton meters.
Well,
which is what we measure actuators in, by the way, for everybody out there.
I have a lot to say about this, but I'm going to hold off.
Okay. Before we finish today, I'd just like to give you one opportunity to talk about the philosophy of Bayes edge.
Sure.
And we've now looked at a lot of robots, a lot of humanoids. We kind of know which direction things are going in. Now that LLMs can allow robots to do planning and can do reinforcement learning, we think we know where we're going a little bit, but it's too expensive. All these things are all locked up. Why don't you just tell us from your point of view about what we're trying to do?
So from the point of view of the consumer, what my vision is, and what I brought to you, like, getting onto a year ago, and you initially were skeptical, but my feeling is you're going to have some sort of servant robot, mechanical device, an agent in the real world in every home, doing like all the things that we don't want to do, taking out the trash, mowing the lawn, washing the dishes, washing the clothes, cooking, cleaning. All of these things I hate personally, and I'm on a jihad to not have to do them and not have to be rich enough to hire somebody to do them for $30 an hour. So that's from the consumer side. From the sort of robotics and AI side, there's often been, and I was guilty of this too. I think everybody in the field, like I've talked with Ben Gertzel about this and Stephen Wolfram. Everybody sort of had this idea that there would be embodiment first and then language would come later, because that's the way humans develop, right? So it was quite an interesting twist in the plot that language became the first thing to sort of break through the Turing test and, seem like, arguably appearing to be, very intentional, if not conscious. Now we move to the agent side, right? So we're not quite duplicating human evolution. We're going in a different path. We took language first because we had this corpus of the internet, and we sucked in 1 trillion bytes of internet, text information about humanity and Earth and everything. But now we still find even the most sophisticated AI agents or AI, chatbots and stuff make mistakes about the physical world because they don't live in the physical world. And robots are taking that and moving it into the physical world, into the environment that we all know, the three-dimensional Newtonian physics environment. And there are some people who feel like if you read Nick Bostrom or Jürgen Schmidhuber or Yasha Bach or any of these thought leaders in this space, there's a real feeling that embodiment is going to make a huge difference, and it's going to bring us that much closer to the uncanny valley, perhaps, or simply acceptance of the fact that we have a new species on this planet that is able to think and plan and interact.
Well, I think certainly Jan LeCun believes that that LLMs are trained on the finished product. It doesn't show your work, so to speak. And a baby learns by testing, and that these embodiments are going to learn in that way. And that's why we're going to see a massive acceleration at this point.
But I will say there's some evidence with the recent release of O3 and the DeepSeek stuff from China that when you allow these LLMs to recursively think about their output and go through an iterative process like humans do, which they're doing now with the latest models, you kind of may push beyond the paradigm that LeCun is holding out.
Interesting. So Dan, I think we did a pretty good job there. We reached the end of our first episode of RoboWeekly without anything too bad happening. Yeah, and I think everybody understands what we're trying to do here. We're trying to talk about what's out there, and I think everybody should start getting excited about what we're going to show you by episode 3 is what we're aiming for. So thank you for watching Robo.
Episode 2 is a gimme.
The episode 2 we're not going to be on. So thank you for watching RoboWeekly. Love that. And we'll see you again. No, we're not off yet. We'll see you again in 1 week because this is a weekly. So Dan, thank you for being my co-host. I'm sure we'll figure out a way to get this dance going a little bit more. We're also going to be bringing on guests from now on. And thank you all for giving us your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fabian.
Oh my.